Okay. I received a comment on one of my videos. I believe it was from the video that I posted earlier this morning. And I was kind of irritated by the comment. I actually wrote it down. I don't have it around here with me. But my first thought process was to lash out at this person. But then I sat and thought about it, and I'm like, well, maybe this person really doesn't know, or maybe they're like confused or something. So I just figured I would, I guess, just talk about it. Okay, so in the comment, it was along the lines of, why didn't I use protection if I knew I couldn't provide a stable life for my children? I'm not too sure, or why I wasn't on birth control, sorry. The protection was in regards to me hoeing. If I always used protection while I was hoeing, which the answer is no. And why I wasn't on birth control if I knew that I couldn't provide a stable life for my kids. I provided a stable life for my kids. Like, my kids were very well taken care of, up until like I kicked my then husband out in November, the end of November of 2016. And then I moved my then meth-headed boyfriend in, which was the biggest mistake of my life. But long story short, that's when I got on drugs really bad. I did end up pregnant with his child. I stayed clean for 2 months during that pregnancy. I miscarried at 16 weeks, which was in March of 2017. And then after that, I just spiraled completely out of control. My kids were taken April of 2017. You know, they were placed with my cousin because I had pending charges that I was going to jail for right then and there. So all four of my kids went to my cousin, and then my ex-husband, well, my then husband, he came and got our 3 kids. My daughter didn't want to go with him, so she stayed with my cousin. Before then, okay, my kids were very well taken care of. Like, when me and my husband, we were together, even though, like, we were not meant to be married. We were not meant to be together whatsoever. We were not compatible. We didn't mesh well together. We didn't even know each other long. We've only known each other literally for maybe 3 months before we got married. We stayed married for 5 years. But during our marriage, my kids were very much so taken care of. I'm not too sure if maybe this person just automatically assumed just because I was a prostitute that I wasn't taking care of my kids. But that's absolutely not true. Nobody would have known what I was doing. Even till this day, nobody would have known had I not decided to share my story with the world. My own family didn't even know what I was doing. My own husband that I was married to for 5 years didn't even know. He was completely oblivious to the fact that I was a paid fucking hoe. He only worked 6 months during our entire marriage. He told his family it was because I was completely high and out of my mind and he had to stay home with the kids. That's absolutely not true whatsoever. I was on Suboxone during those 5 years of being married to him. So, not true at all. And besides that, okay, I was also prescribed Xannies by my Suboxone doctor. After I had my last baby in March of 2015, I think I went through a period of postpartum depression. I never talked about it before, but I'm pretty sure I did, because I never felt like how I felt after I had him with any of my kids. I started really abusing my benzos, then going to different doctors to get different scripts of benzos, and it eventually did catch up to me. We'll talk about that in a later time. But all my kids started, besides my baby, of course, because I had him in 2015, so he's a baby, so he couldn't start preschool. But every time, when my kids turned 3 years old, they all started preschool. They were all all three of my kids, my school age kids, were in school. Very much so, went to school every single day, never missed a day. And my oldest daughter, she played basketball. She was in cheerleading. She was in gymnastics for 2 years. My other daughter was also in gymnastics for 2 years. My boys couldn't get involved with anything because they were too young. But I was very much so a part of my kids' lives. My kids had a good life, besides the fact of what they're going through now. But when me and my ex-husband were together, they had a good life. They were very, respectful, well-behaved kids. So, normally, if this was me 6 months ago, if I would have read that comment 6 months ago, I probably would have addressed it in a completely different manner. I'm just going to be honest. I'm trying to do things in a more loving, caring, respectful manner. Not only because I want to be the best version of myself for me, but, for my kids. When I get my babies back, I truly believe, kids obviously mock what they see. And I don't want them to be hateful or spiteful or lashing out at people. I don't want that. So I'm trying, my hardest to change how I approach things and how I handle things. And I'm not too sure why, I'm pretty sure if she thought that, maybe other people thought that as well. And one of the other questions, like in the comment that she left, was if I was homeless for most of the 20 years. No. Like, I was literally living off the street maybe for a year out of the 20 years. Mind you, like, obviously, like, the 5 years that I was married to my husband, we had our own place, of course. We lived in a house, same house for 4 years. Prior to that, we were in an apartment for a year. Before I moved into that apartment, before we moved in, to that apartment, I was living with my grandmother. And before then, I was living with a John for a few months. And then I got pregnant. And then I moved in with my grandmother. Before then, I was in, the halfway house. Before then, I was in prison. Before then, I was in jail. Before then, I was between my grandmothers and my aunts. And, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. There's been a handful of times where I did, was, on the street, but that only lasted for like, a couple of days or whatever. And then I'll go back to my grandmother's house. But for the most part, no, like, I always had a roof over my head. When I turned obviously I started this whole, prostituting when I was 14. So I was still a baby. I was still a kid. And I was still living at my aunt's house. When I turned 18, I, obviously went to jail first time when I was 18. But besides that, I had my, own apartment when I was 18. It only lasted for like maybe, 4 or 5 months. But besides that, like I'm not too sure if people just assumed, they just automatically assume if somebody who's prostituting, they just assume that they wasn't providing a stable life for their kids. I also want to make this clear too, like I never lost custody of my children. Never lost custody of my children. The only reason why I am in this situation that I'm in now with going to court, family court, to get full custody of my children is because when I was incarcerated in 2018, my divorce was finalized in March of 2018. I was released from prison in October of 2018. I never received any notifications, no letters, no nothing when I was in prison in Marysville in the state of Ohio while my divorce was finalized. I didn't even know we were divorced at all until I got out October 12th of 2018. And when I went to my aunt's house, that same day, I called him. I called my ex-husband, and he's the one who told me, hey, we're divorced, just to let you know. I wasn't even notified. Fairfield County and Lancaster, Ohio never notified me. And they just automatically gave full custody to my ex-husband because I was incarcerated. Now, did he deserve full custody, or did he deserve custody because I was incarcerated? He deserved custody, but maybe not full custody, sole custody, to where, you know, he's literally using my children as bait. And he's literally in a position to where he has all full 100% control over my kids, when I can see them, where I can see them, you know, everything. And he literally alienated my kids from me for 15 months. So, and he, you know, when I got out, when I got clean in December of 2018, he was allowing me to see them whenever I wanted, up until, for the most part, there was more than a few times where I wanted to see them and he said no, because he likes that control. But for the most part, he allowed me. And up until January of 2020, when I told him, when I found out what was going on in the home, even before I found out what was going on in the home, I was going to file for full custody of my kids anyway. Because there was more than a dozen times where he would not let me see my kids, and I'm not sitting right with that. He wouldn't let me know where, you know, where they went to school, their teachers. Two of my kids have IEPs. He wouldn't let me sit in on any IEP meeting. He wouldn't tell me who their doctors were, who their dentists were. Nothing like that. Anything. Like, he literally didn't want me to be involved in my kids whatsoever. And those are my fucking kids. I birthed these human beings. And if you think for 1 minute that I'm not going to be involved in my kids, you're fucking insane. You're fucking insane. Especially now that I'm sober and I'm getting my shit together. No. So I already was going to file for full custody, but I wanted to, make sure I was more mentally stable. I had more clean time under my belt, and I was, I had a big enough house, you know, so all my kids can have their own space. At the time when I initially filed for custody in January 2020, we lived in a three-bedroom home. Actually, no, it was a 2-bedroom townhome. And then shortly after that, we moved into our 3-bedroom house, which was right in the hood. Like, that wasn't a good place for, you know, our kids. So we got this house, you know, beautiful home in Upper Arlington, Ohio, and in one of the best fucking school districts, strictly for my fucking kids. Besides that, you know, I just wanted to say this to just make it clear to everybody. Like, it wasn't like the only reason why Children's Services stepped in, because in April of 2017, was because I had charges that I was going to jail for, and Children's Services knew, you know, Fairfield County knew that I didn't have family. Okay, so they knew that they had to come in and they had to figure out where my kids were going to go while my ass was fucking locked up. And they can very much tell that I was fucked up off drugs. Okay, so my kids, and I say this all the time, my kids needed, absolutely 100% needed to be taken from me at that time. Absolutely. I don't argue with that. They needed to. But that one fuck up that I did does not mean that it gives the right for anybody, my ex-husband, the judge in Fairfield County, Lancaster, Ohio, any fucking buddy, to keep my kids from me for the rest of my life. Absolutely not. And no right-minded human being can tell me that I am more than able and capable to raise my fucking oldest daughter and get custody back of her, but I can't get custody back of my 3 babies and raise my 3 babies. That's insanity to me. Insanity. You know, long story short, we go to court here in a couple weeks. I know I'm going to get my babies back. That's inevitable. I know they're coming back home to me. I can feel it. I can taste it. I can sense it. I can see it. They're coming home where the fuck they belong. I'm not taking them from their dad. I'm just giving them, you know, a better life. I'm giving them better opportunities so that they can be the best versions of their little selves that they can be. And that's just what the fuck it is. So anyway, long story short, I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to get confused, or think that, you know, A, my kids didn't have a stable life before, you know, I went to jail, because they did. And B, that just because you're a paid hoe doesn't mean that you can't provide a stable life for your kids. Like, that's ridiculous. And doesn't mean that you're also homeless either when you're a paid hoe. And yeah, so I just wanted to make that clear, you know, clear that up. Okay, so I think tonight's gonna be my cheat night. So I'm gonna make some brownies and just pig out on fucking brownies on it. Bye.